Okay, so this is your assessment of your ability to demonstrate your skills on chemical reactions. It will ask you to do everything that we have been working on for the past couple of weeks. Okay, so this one's coming in 4 marks. So on that sheet of paper is where you should do it all. Okay, now you want to listen carefully to the instructions. Each one of those questions, all 30 of them, are out of 3 marks each. But there are different sections to the assignment. So you need to make sure you're doing the right things in each section. Most of the time, people lose marks on this assignment because they don't do what they're supposed to, not because they didn't know how. Okay? So you want to make sure you're listening carefully here. So for section 1, okay, that is questions 1 to 10, okay, you are going to balance the reactions. So that's fill in the blank. If it's a 1, put a 1 in there. Okay, it's fill in the blank. So put a 1 in there if it's a 1. Okay, and you need to write it out in words. So you get 1 mark for the reactants, 1 mark for the products, 1 mark for the properly balanced equation. Okay, so sorry, 1 mark for products, 1 for balancing. And there's a couple of tricky balances in here. Okay, to be certain, there are a couple of tricky balances. Now, a couple of reminders for this section, places where people lose marks, not because they don't know how, but because they forget. Roman numerals. Remember that multivalent metals, that is metals with more than 1 possible charge, must have Roman numerals in their names. Okay, people forget that a lot. Okay, or really oddly, they do it on the reactant side, and then they don't do it on the product side. I don't know why that happens. Okay, you need Roman numerals, okay, in there. And remember your naming rules. So when does something need a prefix, and when does something not need a prefix? Okay, so the tricky balances are 4, for sure, and 6. Okay, 4 and 6 are probably the 2 tricky balances. And for number 4, my suggestion would be to balance nitrogen first. Okay? That would be my suggestion, I think. Yeah. Okay. The thing with number 4 is that oxygen is in all 4. Or sorry, well, it's in everything, but it's in all 3 products as well. Okay, and you have an odd number on this side, but you have an even number on this side. Okay, so it can be a bit tricky. How do you turn an odd number into an even number? Put a 2 in front of the thing that's odd, like right here. You're welcome. That's a big hit actually for that. If it was not so much cold medication, I probably would not have given you that. Okay. So for number 6, similar idea on that one. Okay, I would again say that it's probably not a bad idea to balance your nitrogens first. Okay. All right. Questions on the first 10? Okay, so 1 mark for balancing, 1 mark for products written in word form, 1 mark for reactants written in word form. Okay, it doesn't have to be a sentence. It can just be this thing plus this thing. Right, with an arrow. You don't have to say, this reacts with this to produce. You don't have to put it in a sentence, okay? All right, then we'll give it the first 10. Okay. All right, for the second set of 10, okay, you are given the word equation, both reactants and products. So you just have to write it out in formula form, identify the reaction type, and balance. Okay, so there were 3 marks. Okay, so the reaction is 1 mark. Balancing is 1 mark. And the type is 1 mark. Don't forget to put the reaction type down. That is the most common mistake made on that set of 10, and it's the easiest of the 3 marks. Okay, so remember to write down the reaction type is worth a mark. Now, this one, guys, is one of those ones where if you're not careful when you're writing out the reaction, you will not get the balancing mark either. Okay, so if you make a mistake on a drop and swap, or you forget about special elements, Okay, you're not going to get the balancing right. The best you'll be able to hope for is 1 out of 3. Okay, so make sure that in this section you are swapping and dropping. And looking for special elements. I would say special elements is probably the bigger deal. Okay? When people make mistakes in this section, it's generally that they forgot something with special elements. They did everything else right, but they didn't. Okay? All right, so again, 1 mark for the reaction, 1 mark for balanced correctly, 1 mark for reaction type. Okay, and your last set of 10. Yeah, okay, so each one's worth 3 marks. 2 marks for the products, 1 mark for the reaction being balanced correctly. There's no mark for the reaction type here. Okay, so you get 2 marks for products, 1 mark for it being balanced correctly. Be careful with these. Okay, they're all pretty straightforward. Though. All right, questions on what you're doing? Okay, I will put the due date up for this shortly. Okay, but you have all of class to work on it. So you should realistically be able to finish it, okay, or at least be very close and not have a lot of it for homework. How much of it is homework is going to depend on how well you work. Okay? If you choose to visit and do whatever and not work, then you're going to have a lot more. Okay? Now, if you have questions, understand that this is trying to assess what you know, not what I can tell you. So if you come up with questions, understand that I'm not going to be as forthcoming with answers as I have been on the worksheets. Okay? This has to tell me what you know, not what I know.
There doesn't need when you're balancing it, doesn't need the 0, just nothing at all.
No, put a 1. Remember I said that. Yeah? Okay, if you put a 0 in, right, that's the one thing we said you can never write. Because 0 means there's none of that, right? Never ever write a 0 when you're balancing a reaction. Okay? Ones, yes. 0s, no. They are for both. Okay, so due date for that will be September 30th.